Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm really excited today. I've got Mark Victor Hansen on, and many of you might know him as Chicken Soup for the Soul, the author and a big time, what would you call yourself? I hear motivational speaker, I hear performance, I hear, what would you actually classify yourself as, Mark?
Well, from the book point of view, they say I'm world's best-selling author, nonfiction. I've sold 500,000 books. From a speaking point of view, I've talked in 80 countries to 7 million people, and it's predominantly, I'm a little more inspiration and motivation because when Jack and I started, I'm the one who taught Jack to do these short stories, 3 minutes or less, because everybody, loves a great story, and we'll share some out of our new book, Ask. And then I've written 309 bestsellers, so I'm better known as an author than as a speaker because books have literally gone everywhere. I mean, we sold 374 million books in China. It just is sort of astounding. So what Jack and I discovered, Jim, is that when we did the title, which is, I teach in my book, You Have a Book in You, which I want everyone to write their book if they're competent and high performance, because everybody's got a book and a story and they need to share it. But what we thought was that America's soul was in trouble. What we discovered was that the world's soul is in trouble. And right now, seeing as we're all self-incarcerated, imposed by government, I'd say that the world's in more trouble today than it's ever been.
When you say trouble, what does that mean? What is the issue that we're really facing?
Well, first of all, we're facing three kind of viruses. The first virus is obviously a artificially induced virus that I believe came out of Wuhan. No, we could argue that, but that everything I read, and some of it's controversial and some of it's contrarian, but I'm an omnivorous reader, and I hang out with real leaders of the world. And as I do, even to people in China that I've worked with for 22 years, going back and forth 4 times a year, say the same thing. They created this. It's a man-made virus. It's not a flu. So that's number one. Second virus is fear, which is always contracted, always limiting, always. And I went bankrupt back in 1974. So I realized fear crushes performance. Fear delimits a human being. Fear made me depressed, despondent, disconsolate, and it never expands. And I work so much with psychiatrists. They all call themselves shrinks. Like I was on just with Dr. Mark Goulson, one of the biggest podcasts with Mark and I, Dr. Goulson and I have known each other forever. And I said, "You're a shrink. I'm a stretch." I'm here to find out what I can do. Like I still do 100 push-ups a day and stuff like that. So, and I'm 72. So, and I believe that everybody has an obligation, which is obviously your industry, to state that for their whole life. It's not, well, I was fit when I was 25 and I was one damn good athlete. Well, good. Where are you at 55 and 65 and 85? And my goal is to live to be 127. So first fear is the actual virus. The second fear is the fear of fears. And obviously my hero Napoleon Hill wrote, "You have nothing to fear but fear itself. Confront your fears and make it disappear." He wrote all the fireside chats for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The third fear is the fear of the economy. And the economy is in a contractive phase when if we didn't have this virus, we'd be in the biggest expansion ever. When we get into this, I'll teach, I think we're going to do 50, not billion, but trillion just in America from 2020 to 2030 AD. And I want to give everybody a free book I just wrote called How to Be Up in Down Times. I know that's a lot to cover. I'm sorry if I OD'd.
No, I have a lot of questions that I want to hit on.
You're allowed to hit anything.
Let me ask you this. So a lot of our audience are small business owners. They're certainly inquisitive and growth-minded, most of them. And so when we take the idea of fear of the virus, fear of the economy, how would you approach this as a small business owner? I mean, are you trying to play within the system? Are you trying to think outside of the system? Are you trying to survive? What would you say to small business owners thinking about this moment in time?
Well, anything under, you and I could discuss it because we're both into studying finance. I wrote all the money books too, but depends on whose definition of small business. But anything under 50 million is a small business. So I'm a small business. You're a small business, probably. I don't know how big you guys are, so I apologize.
We are a small business.
Yeah, but all business is basically the consciousness, the outpicturing of a man's thing. So what you impress, man or woman, is what you're going to express. So if you impress fear and, oh my God, nobody's ever going to want to exercise again, and nobody's ever going to want to be fit, bunk. if you're a thinking person, you want to be fit, you want to be healthy, you want to be whole, you want to be complete, you want to use your full mindedness. So back to your question is that in 1974, I built the Wall Street Racquet Club in New York. I built botanical gardens, but I was building out of PVC plastic at exactly the wrong time. I didn't know it was the wrong time any more than we knew this was coming. I went bankrupt so fast I had to check a book out aloud, how to go bankrupt by yourself. So now I look at it as my best, worst experience, but I literally hid under the sheets for 6 months. I was sleeping in a sleeping bag out in front of some guy's room. And then all of a sudden, in this little book called Ask, the brand new Bridge to Your Dreams, Your Destiny, it's going up to #1 right this second. It just came out a few days ago. What we say is you got to ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. Now, if you're a good business person and you're spiritual, you start by asking God. So I said, okay, God, what's your destiny for me? And he said, you're supposed to master communication and write books. And I said, are you sure you're talking to the right guy? So I had 3 roommates. I was living out in Hicksville, Long Island, New York for $100 a month rent. I went to my 3 roommates. I said, do you know anyone who's young, not a professional lawyer, doctor, celebrity, or famous person that's speaking? And one of my roommates said, I'm in real estate, John said. And he said, this guy in Hauppauge, Long Island, a few years older than me, but he's phenomenal. And he gave me his ticket, right? He said, here's a little ticket. Use my name and you'll get in. I watched this guy mesmerize 500 people for 3 hours. And then I say, the guy's name's Chip Collins. He became my best friend. And I said, Chippy, can I take you to lunch? He said, I love a free lunch. I'll let you take me. And I said, I want to do what you do. I want to be a high-performance speaker, motivating people to their own greatness. And he said, good. Chance you make it a boy is 1 in 1,000. I'm going on vacation 2 weeks. I'll tell you what you do. You go after the life insurance business because it's a bottomless pit, but you stay out of real estate because I own this 5 borough area. I own Zip, so I'll do anything you want, you know. And he gave me the questions to do. He said, you'll knock on 10 doors. One will say yes. First day, 10th guy, 6:30 at night. He said by that time, no secretaries, just whatever the boss's name is on the front, Metropolitan, Tony, just walk to his office. So he'd give me that direction. I walk in and Tony had missed exercise. He was not doing what you and I believe. I mean, whatever I tell you, Tony weighed in 400 pounds if he weighed now. Tony and I just hit it off. For whatever reason, God was being very gracious. I was under the favor of God. After he said, you know, because Chip would give me a line, do you want to cut the check, Tony, or do you want to have your secretary? I said, I'm a big boy. I can cut $100 check for $25 for 4 seminars. He said, boy, here's a directory. He said, now understand, I'm #1 on that. You just tell everybody, Tony told you to call. You'll get right in. Hell, I was doing 4 talks a day. So the first 3 years, talk about performance, only Tony Robbins and I have ever, as far as I know, done 1,000 talks a year I'd be doing talks at 6 a.m., selling in between 1 at 10, 1 at 2, and another at 8. And I was having a time of my life 5 days a week and I was learning the stuff. I'd be driving around back then. You remember how Sony tape recorders were like this big?
Yes.
And I had this beat up old Volkswagen. I parked 2 blocks from the client and I'd be listening to it all the way over and getting inspired so I could cheer them on. So back to your question, to get over this whole thing, our small business people have to inundate themselves with positives. Now, at the time, I was listening to Zig Ziglar and I was listening to Cabot Robert. I was listening a lot of names that some people today would know. But today it'd be Steve Covey, who's passed away just a year ago, but a good friend. And his son and I just decided to do something today, Steve Jr. So it's sort of amazing. You know, we're in an exciting time where today you've got great podcasts, but you need to listen to them and not listen to all the negative news. Back when I was reading New York Times, it should have said all the bad news.
When you look at this, something, and I hope to have a lot more conversations with you over the years, but at the first couple conversations, I've noticed that you are not only incredibly positive, but you hustle. What is it about? It seems like you love the act of hustling. What is it about that just kind of gets you going, or did you teach yourself that? I know a lot of folks who don't seem to love it. Is that innate? Is that conditioned? Where does that really come from?
Wow. First of all, I've never heard the question before. It's like that question, which is more important, nurture or nature, which, you know, I have 2 of our 5 kids are adopted. So I now know, but I think I know. Experientially, I know. But for me, leadership is always self-leadership first, which is what we're talking about to each of us. So you got to lead yourself. And the only way to lead yourself is leadership comes down to coordinated movement. And what Andrew Carnegie said, you got to work in a spirit of cooperative harmony. Two or more form a third new mind. And he taught Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And I'm really scholarly in that stuff. And then obviously I've written 1 Minute Millionaire and all those other books. I've written 7 money books like Richest Kids in America and Cracking the Millionaire Code. But the bottom line is, you got to really work, and you got to be focused when you're focused and disciplined when you're disciplined, and decide, I say you got to figure out what you want. It's got to be in writing. Everyone says, well, I got it in my mind. No. God said, look, if you believe the Bible, and I did Chicken Soup with the Soul Bible, so I'm pretty clear in the Bible, but it says, write a thing and make it clear and it'll be established on you. Look, if Big G is talking, I'm going to go, okay, if that's what it is, I'll write down. I want how many, in your case, or your industry's case, you do it by how many customers you get, or how many clients, or what do you call a patient? What do you call them?
Yeah, we would call them clients in our world.
Okay, so you want X amount of clients getting X amount of performance activity. So, and you want them 5 days a week, you want them 3 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever it is. And then whatever it is that you charge, and I don't remember the numbers you gave me, but whatever it is that they need. And if, let's say that they need to make, if you want to make $100,000 a year, you got to be making $400 a day, 250 work days a year. And in the life insurance business where I train, the richest guy there who woke up every year, Ben Feldman, the world's greatest salesman at the time, said, Mark, why aren't you making a million a year? And I go, Ben, I'm not making $1 million because I'm not. He said, well, it's 10. I said, look, Benny, look, Ben, talk with a lisp. You can see him on YouTube. He's wonderful and that. But Ben said, look, it's a difference 10. He said, you got kids. If you had to make 4,000 in a day, or your kid's life would die tomorrow, would you figure out how to do it? I go, whoa, you're going to kill one of my kids. and suddenly I had to make $4,000 a day, and then I started making $1 million a year, and that was like in 1976. I thought, wow, it back to this thing. It's a change in conscience, a change of perception. And when Bob Allen and I wrote 1 Minute Millionaire, and we melted down Amazon by selling more than they've ever sold. And Jeff Bezos had previously said, nobody can sell more than I, Jeff Bezos, and Amazon can deliver. We didn't know we melted him, and he called up and said, bring your little butt up here. I'm sending you first class tickets. You got to tell me how you could melt my company. Because he went, we sold more than he could deliver. And I can go into that story. The point is you're supposed to, so Bob and I are writing the book, and we got $1 million for Random House to write it. And we said, we got to sell 1 million books to make them happy. And so I said, well, look, 1 million's hard. So let's say that we got to sell 10 million. Now we look back at 1 million, it looks easy. So it's the whole Google X 10X principle. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty big story, but I think I opened it and closed it. I hope I did. If I didn't, ask me to delineate any part of it.
No, when I think about that, it's so interesting because now that we're in the world of the internet, everything seems super, super scalable, but it still comes down to the same types of principles, at least from where my angle is. You have to be intriguing, you have to be unique, you have to work hard, you have to have a quality product. What I've picked up from you in our couple of conversations is that you're extremely confident in the products that you have, and you're willing to talk about them all the time, which some people don't want to do. So this idea of success isn't just about a product or just about marketing. It has to be a combination of both. And so when you think about somebody who might not be doing one of those sides, is that often internal, or where would you say that the issue often lies with those folks?
Yeah, it's absolutely internal, and their fear level is mistaken, because I have the exact same birthday as the world's greatest marketer. He and I have written a book together, Jay Abraham, and you probably know him, the best long copy guy in the world. And Jay and I are both born on Elvis's birthday, January 8th, or he was born on our birthday, much older than us. Anyhow, the point is that what Jay said is if you have a real good product or service or idea, you have a moral and ethical obligation to source and serve people. So that's part two of what you asked. Part one of it, you asked, I won't write any book or do it. I own 4 companies that don't do 3 things. It's got, what you said is correct. I just used different wording. Unique. You don't want to be in a sea of sameness. That'd be dumber than hell. Why would you do that? So number 1, it's got to be unique. Number 2, it's got to be transformative. Well, heck, what you guys are doing is transformative. You're melting people. I'm going back. I'm getting littler, right? And getting fitter because everybody, I'll go there in 1 second. And the third thing, it's got to be inevitable. Well, it's inevitable today that if you're paying attention, look, who dies of this thing? The people with a weak heart, bad lungs, a weak brain, or any malady that has them falling apart for whatever reason. And what do we know? When you are doing resistance training, you got strong bones, you got a strong body, you can lift up stuff, you can exercise, you can cross train, you're CrossFit, you're able to go out and do stuff. And now let me just do the subset. I said part B of that one thing. For a long time, I owned a house next to Bill Gates in Kona, Hawaii. It just is one of those places we owned and loved it. And what happens is you saw all the people arriving on the cruise ships or whatever. All right, here goes, I can hardly walk. And you almost think they're going to fall over dead when they hit the ocean. I was saving my whole life to get here. It's like the laughing little old man who falls off his tricycle. You go, damn, what were you doing when you were 50? Why didn't you take some of the money at 50 when you're still healthy? And why didn't you just stay healthy? You got 168 hours a week. We all got the same hours. Arnold Schwarzenegger has no more than you and I, or no less, right? But somehow he and Rock and all these guys and ladies, I guess, I don't know as many ladies that are in fitness, but, Terry Crews, all of them, they all exercise and they all are consistent, insistent, and persistent like I am. I was up at 5:30 this morning to exercise. It's not, I'm way beyond whether it's a choice. I feel better. And if I don't exercise, I don't feel as good because the endorphins go up, right?
Yep. When did you start thinking about that and putting a lot of priority into exercise, food, recovery? When I listened to you give a conversation a couple of months ago, and you talked a lot about that. What was the reasoning? Not the reasoning, but what was maybe the genesis of that feeling for you?
By the way, you're asking all these great questions I've never thought about. So if I stumble through it, I love the word genesis. So let me just say that the genesis, I think, for the hard exercise it's 1974 and the guy's name, Fix, the guy, the runner's manual or runner's Bible or whatever he called it. I apologize. Jim Fix, now I remember. And then he came along and then there's a guy after him, CrossFit on PBS. I don't remember his name, cross training. And so I started running, and then if you're going to get into running, I was running 7 miles a day. And then pretty soon you learn that running is really good aerobically, but you got to be both aerobic and anaerobic. And then all of a sudden I'm doing all these seminars and I'm telling everyone they got to exercise. And one of the guys that I hang with a little bit now is Peter Guber, the guy who's done 50 Academy Awards and owns the Golden State Warriors, where, oh gosh, it breaks my heart. Those guys are not going to, you can't come to a basketball game anymore. Or he owns the Dodgers with Magic and that, and they can't go to those. That hurts my heart just because it's his business and he's a good man. And he couldn't see this crap coming, if you'll forgive me for being caustic for a second. But then all of a sudden, what I learned is that I'm doing the talks about that, and then I'm now doing total fitness. And somebody came up to me at one of the talks in the late 70s and said, hey, you need to be taking these green pills because you need to up your body's probably acid and you need to be alkaline and you need to balance it. And here's a litmus paper and let's just test it. And I got into it, and then now I'm married to a woman that's not only you're going to interview her later, but she's not only a clinical hypnotherapist, but she's one of the top nutritionists around. And as long as I'm on that, let me just say that everybody needs to do their own research right now. If you want to make sure you stay healthy, you've got to be taking metallics. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I'm not an expert, but yes.
Like zinc, you need to go do your own study and how much zinc you want or how much colloidal silver, because viruses, ladies and gentlemen, can't live in that. But I'm not giving medical advice. Go do your own dang research. But when you start studying this stuff, you go, wait a second. Of course, big pharma's not going to pay you to learn that. Big pharma's not going to tell you to go exercise, because if you're sick, they get paid. If you're well, they don't get paid. So follow the money, because what do we know in Economics 101? Economics 101 said there's no free lunch. Economics 102 says, follow the money. And what you're going to see when you're following the money is whatever gets incentivized gets done.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I'm a big lover of behavioral economics, and it almost makes me think about loss aversion as well for the pharma companies. Is it would be such a big disruption if somebody could actually reduce some of their power, but at some point something will disrupt it. Now, who knows what it is, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but that would just be a massive disruption that they're probably not prepared for, because they have the golden goose right now in terms of cash flow. Something else, oh my gosh, something else that I've definitely noticed through our first couple conversations. You're an amazing storyteller, but you also seem very systematic. So when you think about something, when you wrap your mind around an idea, like your book Ask, right? What are you trying to capture? Are you trying to capture like a system of why questions are so important? What are you not attempting, you did capture, but what are you capturing with it? What systematically are you going after?
Well, first of all, in grad school, I was with Buckminster Fuller, who was Einstein's best student, and he taught me general systems theory by Bernoulli. But in every system has an inside and an outside. And what we discovered was, Crystal and I, we're talking until this thing got shut down, to 250,000 people a year. And what we looked at is people that are really, they're professional, they're well-educated, they're articulate, but something isn't making them go from where they are to running a city or running a big corporation or fulfilling their destiny. We're saying, the only path to your destiny is asking. And so what happens is, all of us know the spiritual line, ask and you shall receive, right? Everyone knows that, or some iteration of it. And the point is, most people never learned to ask. We said, wow, the people that succeed, like Peter Guber I talked about, or a master asker, or Deborah Asada Shaw, master asker, or Rita Davenport, master asker. And we said, wow, let's write everything we know about asking, because no one's ever done a book on ask. And you go, holy cow, if that's the principle of leverage, where something little moves something big, like the hinges on this door, little hinges move a big door, right? Asking is the principle of principles. It is, and no one's ever explored it. And I thought, Crystal and I thought, as a system, we got to figure it out. So we wrote everything we knew, and then we interviewed the 26 best askers. And with your permission, I'll just give it a story that fits right here.
Great, we'd love it.
So we interview a guy named Jim Stovall, who Stovall is 19 years old. Everybody here should go look at him, but he is a superstar, physically fit, 19, ready to go in the NFL. Finally gets recruited. I mean, he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's solid as a rock, 4% body fat. Gets recruited, and they do a medical on him, and they say, Jimmy, I'm sorry, kid. Bad news, kid. In 6 months, you are going to be permanently and forever blind. Talk about crushing your spirit. Well, now he is self-incarcerated in a little 9x12 room. And he's got a telephone, a television, and a radio. His parents come in and say, Jimmy, this isn't working. Why don't you go down to the blind meeting and see how it is? Well, he goes down to the blind meeting. He sees all they're doing is muttering the echo effect of what he knows. Everybody in blind knows you're in a disadvantaged thing because your mind is 87% visual. He sits next to a woman who is a blind stenographer for a legal firm. And he said, her name is Kathy. He said, Kathy, I used to love watching movies and see somebody throw a right hook. And here's a pivotal question. Everybody listening, this is a pivotal question of our life and the times we're in. Because we've got to reinvent ourselves. We've got to re-engineer ourselves. We've got to re-innovate to go onto a new plane. So he says, somebody ought to do something about that. Kathy hit him and said, hey, wait a second. We're somebody. Why can't we do it? And that's what I'm saying. All of us listening are somebody. Why can't we do something? So the question is, what do they do? Well, all of us that are sighted don't know what they did, but what they created was narrative television. And 14 million people around the world today that are blind listen and get to watch movies and TV. You've been in big hotels where you flip a channel and you go, why are they talking? And, saying Sally did that kiss on the side of the cheek. And you go, I knew that, I saw it. But you flipped on narrative TV, which Jim owns, and it's a giant business. So I get introduced to Jim, and I've physically never met him. We've done stuff a lot together on the phone. And we interviewed him for Ask on the phone, because he is the wisest man I think I've ever met, because he's stuck inside his brain. So Charlie Tremendous Jones, a great speaker, calls me up and said, Marky, I know that you're selling 15 million books a year and you and I are best friends, but I got to ask you to read this one book called The Ultimate Gift, which if you haven't read it, you want to read it. He said, you're going to love The Ultimate Gift. And I read it and I went, I immediately wrote the forward to it as requested in the back page and said, this book is so clear, so vital, so important, it needs to be a movie. Jim says now if he lives, I'll be 100. He'll thank me every day in his prayer because he made $100 million on the movie with everybody famous in it. That when you go look it up online, you go, oh my goodness, I got to read this and watch this tonight. And it's on Netflix now and all that. But so Jim finishes his story with us and says, look, blindness isn't a disadvantage. It advantaged me. It leveraged me. I repositioned myself. I went forward. And he said, I now write books that I can't read. And I make movies that I can't watch. And I'm going to be in one of his next movies. So I obviously will finally get to physically meet this guy who also became a first blind Olympic weightlifting champion.
Wow.
Yes, for America. So he said, well, I'm still stronger than whatever he's stronger than. I got to be careful. I don't want to ever besmirch him if he listens to this. Whatever strong. I'll say a buffalo because I think they're a tame animal and safe. I don't know.
So when you wrote Ask, what, not necessarily chapters, Mark, but what are some of the big ideas that you touch on inside of the book?
Well, the first thing we do is we say, look, there's 7 roadblocks to asking, and most of us, we covered a little bit. We said they're fear. Next is naivete. If you don't know, right, if your whole been imprinted and your parents were fearful and your teachers were fearful and your administrator and your boss is fearful, which is probably true. Our research says that 97% of the people in the world are afraid of asking, yet the opposite. Harvard does a study and says, hey, wait a second, people that ask are liked more than people who don't ask. And people think it's good to do a favor. And later on in the book, we talk about grantor of wishes, which we'll talk about. So you got to overcome your fear. You got to overcome your naivete. You got to overcome your doubt. Now, Crystal's best friend since she was 4 years old is a wonderful woman named Janet, who I know really well. Janet marries Walt. Walt, they have a couple kids, and all of a sudden his kidney goes. And both kidneys go, and he's dying, and he's looking bad, and they've checked the family, and nobody is willing to give a kidney or anything. So she's driving down the road, and she said, okay, remember, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. And I know the hospital said they wouldn't do it, and I got to go out pick up food for us, but I'm going to go in the hospital again and say, test one more time. They test one more time and say, you got one little genetic thing that makes it possible that you could put it together. So they said, we'll operate in an hour, otherwise he'll be dead. They operated in an hour, and one of hers is in him and one of his is, and he's, otherwise he wouldn't be alive. Walt's a really powerful guy. So the point is it, she was naive. She listened to the people that they're naysayers, just like I got 144 rejections before Chicken Soup finally got accepted, because Peter Goober says, Mark, you're so dyslexic, you think no means on. And he was teasing, of course, maybe.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But he's still my friend after insulting me like that. No, he's not. I mean, he is my friend, and no, he didn't insult me. I got to make sure, because some people come back and said, anyhow,
right.
You know how that goes, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'm in a position that it's easy to attack, because they go after one line and they miss the whole context. Context is I adore Peter and his wife and his family and his kids.
If I think about this from an example standpoint, let's assume that a coach has a list of clients and they want those clients to have more success, be it in longevity, health and wellness, etc. But maybe their business isn't going as well, or maybe for whatever reason, their clients aren't having the successes that they want. How could this framework in Ask, how could that potentially be played out by this coach?
Well, first of all, I love the question. And I love the question because the reason I sold more seminars than anyone when I started is I would ask them, well, what do you really want in life? And everyone knows what they want. And most people never ask anybody. Wives don't ask husbands. Husbands don't ask wives. Parents don't ask, because you got kids, don't ask kids. Kids don't ask the parents, other than they tell them, I get me a new bicycle, Dad, or whatever it is. The point is, the minute I ask them, well, what do you want? And whether they told me it was a business thing or, in my case, different people in podcasts say, well, would you introduce me to Bob Proctor, or would you introduce me to Steve Covey when he was alive, or Steve Jr., or, Dr. John Maxwell, or Harvey Mackay, or whoever? I'd say, heck yeah. I mean, he was a good person. I'll gladly make the thing. And I've introduced more people to more people. And when one of my friends had was running a giant church with 15,000, and a husband stole $3 million, ends up in jail forever. But she said, I'm broken, I can't do it. And she just told me what her problem was. I said, well, what if I help you do a seminar? Mary is her name. And we just come there and we really make it big. And I brought in our business, the most famous guys like Les Brown and Bob Proctor, and I can name all the people, but we brought 15 stars. And I said, none of us charge anything, and all the money goes to getting this, keeping the church going. Because I mean, I'd gone up to this church with 15,000. Jack and I brought in Dr. Canfield. We sold a gazillion books. And now I said, we'll just help Mary stay alive. And now she's doing great again. But the point is, everybody's got a problem, and a coach's position is to not just solve their physical problem, but help get inside their mind and get everybody back to what I'm saying. You're either thinking positive or negative. And most people are so negative, they don't even know they're negative. And they're on a self-fulfilling, self-prophetic tape loop of, oh my God, if the economy doesn't open up, I'm going to go bankrupt. Wrong thinking, right? If you start thinking right, talking right, acting right, you get the right result right here, right now. And it's real easy for all of it. It's because the world is predominantly negative, but what's happening in the world is predominantly positive. The fact is, I don't know anything about your ancestors, but we've written that book called You Have a Book in You, and the subset is Speed Write Your Autobiography in 22 minutes. Wouldn't it be nice to know what your great-great-grandparents said, felt, how many kids they had, what their superpowers were, so you know more of the stuff you've got in your DNA?
Yes, it would be great to know that.
Yeah, but back to your question, so questions reveal everything. And what we do is we do all the questions in here that you've never even thought of asking. At the highest level, one of the guys I love a lot now, Peter Diamandis, the guy with Singularity University and a genius, he and Kurzweil, and they say, what are you going to do to positively affect 1 billion people in the next decade? Here's the thing about a question. A question opens your mind. A question never stops until it gets answered, because the big language is called teleological. That means your mind is always vectoring toward the answer. It's like, I'm on the board of Back to Space because I really believe the space program, and I was part of it with Bucky, who was a senior advisor at NASA. The rocket ship, when you talk to my friend Buzz Aldrin, who is a dear close general, Dr. Buzz Aldrin, right? Buzz Lightyear to kids who are listening. It is off target 99%, but it's constantly revectoring and getting back on and weaving. Same with your mind. Once you ask any question, like I asked, how do I go bankrupt? Beep, 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 beep. I check a book out louder, how to go bankrupt. I ask, how do I become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, whatever? And he goes, and goes straight up. So the mind is neutral, but you got to be imploding it to exactly the right thing, or the best things you can implode it to.
Gotcha. If anybody just listened to that, you need to go back a couple seconds and listen to that again. I think that's extremely profound, especially for a lot of the folks that we work with. When you think about asking questions, how do you condition that for people who might not be used to that? So how do you just generalized habit building, or is it kind of an awareness understanding? Where would you say that most people need?
By the way, there's lots of levels we can do this in, but first of all, let's say that you simulate it. Like, let's say that you're my student, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you whatever the closing question I'm going to ask about OPEX 10 times, and you're going to say no, and I'm just going to be immune to it, right? So what you're doing is you're making yourself rejection proof, because if you go out and assume that somebody's going to say no, you implode it and you go, oh, they don't like me, they don't like my company, they don't like my service, they don't want to really be healthy, they really want to be a dud, and they really want to die early. Whatever it is the mantra is, right? Because it's easy to get sucked in. But if you go in fortified, that's why I'm saying, and I got a gazillion audios out there right now, like how to think bigger than you ever thought you could think. They're all available online at iTunes and Audible and all that stuff, or you can watch my stuff free on YouTube. But listen, whether you listen to me, which I obviously encourage, or any one of the greats, the podcasters, and I can gladly take you through who I think are the super solid people of what's really going to work next. And from now on, is that if you start listening to them, you start, wait, when you go in and you're beating on your chest and you're feeling like Tarzan or Tarzette, are you old enough you remember Tarzan? And you watch Tarzan of the Jungle, written by my hero, Rudyard Kipling. Is it, one of my many author heroes, he was Mark Twain's best buddy, in case you didn't know. The point is if you go in feeling strong and self-confident, but that self-confidence is inwardly generated before it's outwardly experienced as a radiance of your soul and being. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. You got to.
Yeah. So the song you got to sing comes out of Julie Andrews. I've got confidence and confidence alone. I've got confidence in me. Just get it. If you got Alexis or you got OK Google, whatever, I got to be careful because they'll start doing whatever I tell them to do in here. And I got to do one aside. This is irrelevant, but because you got kids, and I hope most people out there do. We got 6 grandkids that we adore, and I take my grandkids to see the Harlem Globetrotters when they're here in Arizona, and our little 8-year-old is going to be he's precocious, he's reading 5th grade level, he's bright, but he's also a superstar little basketball player, and he listens to the Harlem Globetrotter music every day on Alexa, so his dad programs it when he asks for that. It says, "You're about to become a star. You're about to become a champion. Everett, you are a real superhero." I thought to my son, how the heck did you do that? That is wonderful. Because the kid starts beating on his chest. Anyhow, I hope that wasn't too, it was an interesting aside. I've never told anyone that before.
Yeah, no, I love it. I just like getting, the full nature of somebody out as I can. Okay, so I'd love to kind of change gears a little bit here.
Any way you want.
And you are a big, let's just call you a business guy. And so you're always thinking about what's coming next. You mentioned the $50 trillion over this decade. How do you view that opportunity? So what makes you think that 50 trillion is coming, and how did you go about figuring that out?
Okay, so I said everybody that goes to markvictorhansen.com, and that's Hansen, S-E-N, H-A-N-S-E-N, Danish, we give you a book, How to Be Up and Down Times, and the first chapter I wrote, the 7 businesses that are going to do it. I'll just do one now, because I own an alternative energy company called naturalpowerconcepts.com in Hawaii, and if you've never looked at Natural Power Concepts in Hawaii, you got to watch our video. We got the coolest pop-up windmills for urban wind, because we need that, and we got pulsating waves so we could have enough water, because you got to have energy to have water, water to have food, food to have fundamental abundance. That doesn't mean we won't have wackadoos like the guy in North Korea. It just means that there's less reason to do that, less reason for people wanting an authoritarian government, because I am a hardcore free enterprise or capitalist, in case you didn't catch it. And I want everybody out there to become a good, honest, ethical, moral capitalist. Anyhow, so what's true is the first one I talk about of the 7, I'm the advisor to, and it's called, I've made it for lay language called trash to cash. And as you're listening to this, what you got to do is say, and any one of the 7 things I'll talk about real quick, what of these can I do something about? What of these do I want to participate in? If they're going to be 50 trillion, you could do a fraction of a percent and become a billionaire. It's really, because a trillion's 1,000 billion. So there's a lot of money about to circulate in America as this thing opens up. And so trash to cash, this guy is named Dean Rose. He and I are close friends now. And I've never physically met him except by phone. Somebody introduced me and he said, "I understand you're a greenie." And I said, "I'm a tree-hugging Republican." That's true. I really am. I mean, I just think we got to have the environment's worth saving, the earth's worth saving, the skies, I like them pristine and blue, and we can have ample energy without and we're still going to need oil for the next 20 or 30 years, right? So no one's going to go out of business. So trash to cash, this guy, Dean Rose, spent 20 years, $300 million, figuring out how to take, and he's in Michigan. You can look at all those videos online. QCI is a company. The letter Q, the letter C, QCI. Anyhow, and what he's done is he's figured out how to take all garbage. Now you say, well, garbage doesn't matter to me. Hell yeah, it does. You create, whether you want to or not, 5 pounds of garbage a day. Everybody does. Around the world, you do 8 billion people, which we've never had 8 billion people until right now, times 5 pounds of garbage. You see why all of our landfills, we got 10,000 closed landfills in America that are going to poison us in the future. I got to open the pyramids in Guatemala, and what killed the people was their own garbage. It never dawned on me, but I was there with the head of anthropology and archaeology at Harvard, Bill Saturno, and every morning we'd argue, what killed all these people? temperature. Anyhow, what it does, it's your own garbage will kill you if you don't take care of it and recycle it. So what Dean Rose has figured out is how to take every atom and every molecule. So it's metal back to metal, water back, 60% of all garbage is water. So you squish the water out, all or done with robots and that, but we need 22 million people to clean up the mess in America. Now, no one ever thought about a mess, but we never had a landfill until 1952. So remember, this is only a 70-year-old problem, but we've created our own problem, and now on creating is going to make us rich. So metal back to metal, glass back to glass, fuel back to fuel, and there's 3 kinds of fuel. I could go into that if you want, but the point is, and plastic back to plastic. So we clean up the whole oceans and save the fish, because I'm a lifetime scuba diver since I was 16, and Jacques Cousteau made iron oxygen tanks, lungs. And so the point is, the fish are dying because their gills are getting stuck with. We don't need it. We need to clean up the whole environment and end pollution, and have ample energy and ample food. And if you do what the problem that we're in from a spiritual point of view, and some of you, this is going to be really hard to swallow, and it's my opinion, you're allowed to write. Don't write me, write Jim. He doesn't get enough left. No, you can write me at reception@artvictorange.com. I'll gladly answer your letter. But the point is that if we don't solve this, we got to solve a multitude of problems. And that's why all of us are born over endowed. That's why we've got so many of us are educated. And that's why I'm saying every one of us can fix something. And you're not just supposed to be something little, you're supposed to be something big, and you're supposed to make this company bigger. And then as you make other things bigger and solve more problems, you become better. And if you really like what we're talking about, tell all your friends to share this podcast with everybody. I mean, it's good for Jim, it's good for the company, it's good for me, good for us, good for the world, because we got to have a thinking world. And the danger is, this self-incarceration, that we shut ourselves off and start to say, whoops, it's over and we're never going to get released. No, we're going to get released, and it's going to be bigger, better, and stronger, but you need to reprogram your mind positively. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so.
Is it too big an issue to buy into and think about?
I don't think so. I think that a lot of people have not necessarily more time, but they have a different perspective on the time that they have right now, if they're willing to look at it, in that different light, because they're, like you're saying, incarcerated. Anything in those 7 companies about health, pharmaceuticals, anything big in there?
Well, let's just stay in the trash to cash.
Okay.
First of all, we're going to kill ourselves just with the big pharma. Remember, we're throwing away all that germ stuff, and they're not destroying it. They're not incinerating it, which is another problem, but they're not doing any of that. All they're doing is storing in our landfills. Well, look, I am not beating on our engineers. I'm a Horatio Alger Award winner, and up until a year ago, the guy who created all the garbage dumps, Wayne Heisinger, right? The guy who started Blockbuster and lots of stuff. Wayne was a genius with no education. I mean, I think he went to 6th grade or something. And Wayne did a great job, so I'm not beating on Wayne, but he built landfills with 20 mil poly, like that's 3 sheets of paper, right? You put acid on that, a lot of stuff. Is that going to last? No, it's going to burn right through. And where's it go? There's only one, this thing about, you and I have been taught so many false things, like there are 7 oceans in the world. Bull, there's one water, and it's littler than your thumbnail. The earth is 8,000 miles diameter, 25,000 miles circumference, right? But and yes, we got 3/4 water, but the water, if you really look at compared to the earth, it's as little as your thumbnail. And when you start to do it, you say, whoa, that's fragile. And the amount of water that you and I are allowed to drink, called potable water, drinkable water, is really little. And so we better take care of it, because other than air, which I'm saying, let's clean up the whole air, the next thing is you got to clean that up. And so everybody's got to clean up their whole body, and then we got to clean up the body of the planet. Oh boy, that sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, no, that hit really well.
Hey, okay. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to kind of start closing with this question. When we were on a phone call prior, you said that you were talking to me about face masks, and you were talking about how you were kind of one of the big marketers for the face masks. Can we go into that for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I promise you, I'll get you some as soon as they. We've been doing so much with airlines and it. So one of my partners is a genius guy from West Point. He's a guy who trained Noriega when he was our good buddy down in Panama, and then he came back here and did really well while getting an MBA. He became a futures guy, and then he ends up being Silicon Valley superstar, Brad Rowley. And Brad calls up and said, "Hey, look, this whole thing about masks, is it working? Do you have any?" And I said, "Yeah, man, I got the N95." And I said, I go to the grocery store and you sweat like a dog. It sucks. I got to be careful. I don't mean to besmirch something, but he said, "Well, we got a new mask that is made with tourmaline, and it is nanoparticle filled, and it's lightweight, and it's your body and face feel cool when it's hot and hot when it's cool." And it was really made for the military, but this guy's got 2 million in storage, and we're selling for $49.95 for 10. And it is, so if they write me at reception@markettransfer.com, I can send through the order for you guys if they want it. But I'm not trying to sell you individual masks, but I'm saying, hey, look, we're trying to get them for all the airlines right now, like Delta. So when you get on, we're trying to sell them to the hospital, because all the masks that are out there are used once and thrown away. Ours, it goes through 50 washings. And what we're doing in the hospitals is even and odd. On a even day, the doctor and the nurse wears this and then takes it home and launders it. And then on the odd day, wears the other one. And what it does is it's the only thing in the world that's antiviral. What does that mean? And it's 2 layers thick. If you got it, it doesn't go out. And if it's out there trying to come in, it can't come in. And you go, dang, that makes a lot of sense. And we're dealing with some of the best people in the world, because we're saying, hey, wait a second, but if you could tell me how we should get it to every gym, because by the way, you and I talked about this. I want every physical fitness center and all the people in your industry to be able to come back to work temporarily until this virus goes away, which I don't know if Fauci's telling the truth or not, but if it takes 2 years, everyone needs to wear a mask while they're exercising and huffing and puffing and doing the kettlebell or whatever we're doing, right?
Yeah, and what we talked about, like you said, and that's such a difficult thing for typical masks, because
they don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, so what are you going to do? You're going to wear a bandana like I'm robbing you? I got a bandana here. I'm a cowboy. Now, ours is easy to go on. It just goes over the ear. It just fits. It's comfortable, and it's, metaphorically speaking, it's bulletproof. Let's do it. It's virus proof. Sorry.
Right. Do you have a role, let's say in your professional career, do you have a role that you enjoy the most? Because you've got about 50 different roles, it sounds like.
Well, let me answer first of all at the top and then go down, because my teacher taught deductive, where you always start with the universe and come down. So I think everybody's a polymath and hiding, meaning all of us have multiple talents. Bucky Fuller taught me, Einstein said, you wouldn't call a fish a genius because it can't climb up a hill, but you're asking the wrong thing of a fish, right? But if you ask a fish, can it swim? It's a genius at swimming, and fish never hit each other. It's called swarming technology in physics. Anyhow, the point is that Bucky said, all of us are born geniuses and get de-genius because people start telling you can't do that. And you start asking yourself, well, they said I can't do it, so I guess I can't do it. Well, yesterday I did a whole article on, when I was a little kid, they said I couldn't write because they poured red ink all over them. I think, well, 500 million books later, I think I can write. But I don't let any editors ever edit me with red. It just isn't okay, because I think it's demeaning, delimiting, and stultifying. That was a nice word. And so, so I think everyone's a polymath. And I love 3 things that I'm really good at. I'm really good at entrepreneurship. I have a tendency to see the trends. Like I see, look, 8 billion people are going to have to wear a mask for a while. And I didn't never plan on being in a mask business. I never would have ever thought of that. But a guy brought it to me and said, everybody in the airline business, because I was on the board here of Evergreen Airlines, the world's biggest privately held airline. Will you do it? And I said, I'm pretty busy. I don't want to do it. And they said, well, it'd be pretty profitable and it'll help people. And I go, okay, now I'll do it. So and like the energy business, I just believe that we got to do that. So then I love the writing business. I love the speaking business. So, but that's what I'm good at. Those 3 things I am, forgive me, I think I got superpowers in those 3 areas.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What are some of the last things that we can leave some folks with, particularly as they come from the book?
Okay, well, 2 things. One is that I'd like you to read Ask. The other thing is that if you come to our website and look at, if you ever thought you had a book in you, we have a virtual seminar called You Have a Book in You seminar. I think you guys ought to attend it, because if you write a book, it gives you instant credibility. It gives you authority. It'll be a door opener that nothing else will do, and it'll go places you can't do. any other way. And every one of you has something to do with a book, and we teach 12 ways to do it. One of the easiest of the 12 is that you could interview your way forward. And let me give an example real quick. So when Jack and I wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, after all the rejections, a little publishing house took us called Health Communications, HCI. And they said, well, we'll publish it a year and a half from now. And I went, oh my God. Jack and I had spent a lot of money to get here, and now we've got to wait another year and a half. And so I've been working with the whole chiropractic marketplace. I got 3 of my 10 honorary doctorates in chiropractic. So I said, wow, they are having trouble right now, because it was a time that the Clintons had pulled all insurance. So the doctors were going bankrupt immediately. And remember, I teach in mathematics, a negative times a negative equals a positive. So I said, well, I got a negative cash flow. They got a negative cash flow. So that's a negative, like a positive. So because I knew all the top docs, I interviewed all the top docs, just like Napoleon Hill didn't think they were rich, except I interviewed one of the 21 guys, Dr. Nikotov, said, all it is, the reason I do $1 million a year profit is I use a rubber band. I put a rubber band and call it a subluxation around the finger. Jim, what color will my finger take if I don't take off the tourniquet? What color will it turn?
It'll turn deeper red and then probably black.
And then fall off,
yeah.
Right? And then he says, well, can a medical doctor get rid of it? And you go like this. Can a PT, a physical therapist? No. Can a massage therapist get rid of it? No. Who can get rid of subluxation? Only a chiropractor. So those are the kind of guys I interviewed. I interviewed all of them in 1 week. In the second week, I edited it, put it together, because I'm pretty good at that stuff. Then the next year, I sold $3 million worth. And the first one was how to build a cash practice. And the second one is how to hire a perfect CA, a chiropractic assistant that makes you have $1 million practice. So, and I sold something that I didn't even know I could do, and I did it in 2 weeks' time, and then I went out and marketed it. And what I'm saying is, every one of us has got to re-vector. We got to reorient. We got to learn how to ask. But then one of the things I'm saying is, you all have a book in you, and if you go to my website, we'd love to help you if that's something of interest to you. And it may not fit everybody, but I got an idea more people have got on their bucket list. Like, do you have on your bucket list, are you going to write a book?
I've thought about it a lot. I've never committed to it though. So I might.
Well, I inspire you to start it and finish it in 12 hours of training by me. So far, no one's ever, and I can name a bunch of famous people who've written books because of me, like David Bach and Bob Proctor, and on and on. I can, go through a whole list. Cynthia Kersey, and they may or may not know in their industry they're very famous. Whether you know them or not, it doesn't matter. And Dave Ramsey, the guy that's on TV every day saying, "Save your money."
Well, this has been fantastic, Mark. I really appreciate you coming on. I love your perspectives. So you talked about the website and everything. How about one more time? Where can people get in touch with you? Where can people find you?
Just go to markvictorhansen.com, if you would. Mark, M-A-R-K, Victor, V-I-C-T-R, Hansen, H-A-N-S-E-N.com. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't do it to be pompous or pretentious. In just Orange County, there are 423 Mark Hansens, because Denmark means the Mark. So everybody thinks they ought to name their son Mark, and Hansen in Denmark is like Jones or Smith, like John Smith or 4,000 or whatever it is. I mean, there's whatever.
Well, wonderful. I look forward to chatting with your wife, in another day, and have a great rest of your week, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
Super. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everybody.